February 20th, 1965, 10:47 a.m. Paramount Studios, Hollywood. Bruce Lee's hand trembled slightly as he adjusted his black shirt. In exactly 13 minutes, he would walk into that audition room where a producer named William Dozier would give him 5 seconds, just 5 seconds, to prove that an Asian man could have charisma on the American screen. 5 seconds to shatter 50 years of racism in Hollywood. 5 seconds to change the history of cinema forever. What no one knew, what history books rarely tell, is that Bruce Lee had been planning those 5 seconds for 8 years. And what he did in that moment didn't just win him the role, it redefined what it meant to be a star. To understand what happened in that audition room, you need to understand who Bruce Lee was in 1965. He wasn't the legend you know. He wasn't the icon. He was a 24-year-old kung fu instructor, struggling to survive in a country that didn't want him. Bruce had arrived in the United States in 1959 with $100 in his pocket and an impossible dream. He wanted to be an actor. He wanted to show the world Chinese martial arts. He wanted to prove that an Asian man could be the hero, not the villain, not the servant, not the stereotype. But Hollywood in the 1960s had very clear rules about Asians. You could be the wise cook who spoke in riddles. You could be the sinister villain with a long mustache. You could be the gardener who said, "Yes, sir," and disappeared. What you could not be was the protagonist. What you could not be was charismatic, sexy, powerful. Bruce Lee had gone to hundreds of auditions in 6 years. The result was always the same. "Thank you. We'll call you." They never called. Once, a director told him straight to his face, "You're too Chinese to play a Chinese. The American audience needs someone who looks more accessible." In 1964, Bruce was on the verge of giving up. He had a wife, Linda, a young son, Brandon, and he was barely making enough money teaching kung fu classes in Oakland. He charged $20 per class. Some days only 2 people showed up. But Bruce had something Hollywood didn't understand. He wasn't just a martial artist. He was a philosopher, a strategist, an obsessive student of human nature. He had spent years studying not just how to fight, but how to capture attention, how to create impact, how to make people unable to look away. And he had a plan. Everything changed on August 2nd, 1964. Bruce was giving a kung fu demonstration at the International Karate Tournament in Long Beach, California. It was a small event, maybe 200 people in the stands. Bruce wasn't the main attraction. He was just another instructor showing his style. But in those stands was a man named Jay Sebring. Jay was the hairstylist to the stars, the hairdresser for Frank Sinatra, Steve McQueen, everyone big. And Jay was bored until Bruce Lee stepped onto the stage. What Jay saw left him frozen. Bruce wasn't just doing moves, he was creating art in motion. He struck a punching bag with a 1-inch punch that sent it flying backward. He moved like water, fluid and unpredictable. And he had something else, something indefinable. Presence, magnetism, charisma. Jay approached him after the demonstration. "I need your number. I have a friend who's looking for exactly what you are." That friend was William Dozier, one of the most powerful producers in American television. Dozier was developing a new series called Number One Son, based on Charlie Chan, the Chinese detective. He needed an Asian actor who could fight, act, and have star presence. Jay showed him the footage of Bruce in Long Beach. Dozier watched it 3 times. Then he said something no one expected. "Bring him in. I want to see him in person." But there was a problem. Dozier didn't truly believe Bruce could work on American television. He'd seen the video, yes. Impressive, yes. But the video didn't show personality. Didn't show if Bruce could speak, if he could connect with a camera, if he had that intangible something that separates a good fighter from a star. Dozier told his assistant, "Give him 5 seconds in front of the camera. If in 5 seconds he doesn't make me feel something, we're done." When Bruce received the call from Jay Sebring, his heart nearly stopped. A real audition, with a real producer, for a real leading role. This was everything he had dreamed of during 6 years of constant rejection. Linda, his wife, found him that night sitting on the floor of their small apartment, completely still, meditating. "Are you okay?" she asked. Bruce opened his eyes. "I have one chance, just one, and I have to be perfect." Over the next 3 weeks, Bruce did something no other actor would have done. He didn't practice dialogue lines. He didn't rehearse scenes. Instead, he studied himself obsessively. He borrowed a video camera, something rare and expensive in 1965. He set it up in his garage, and for 3 weeks, he recorded everything. He recorded himself speaking, moving, fighting, laughing, looking at the camera. He spent hours reviewing the tapes, analyzing every micro-expression, every gesture, every moment where his energy dipped or surged. He discovered something crucial. In person, Bruce was magnetic, but on camera, something was lost. The camera didn't capture his energy the same way. He had to be bigger, more defined, more intentional, but he couldn't be fake. The camera detected fakeness instantly. Bruce developed what he called compressed charisma. The idea was simple but revolutionary. If you only have 5 seconds, every millisecond has to count. You can't build slowly. You have to strike like lightning from the first microsecond. He studied the stars who worked on camera: James Dean, Steve McQueen, Marlon Brando. What did they have in common? They didn't act for the camera. They acted through the camera. They made the viewer feel like they were looking directly at them, not at a character on a screen. Bruce practiced a specific exercise. He stood in front of the camera. 3 seconds of absolute stillness. Then, an explosive movement. Then, immediately, a smile that reached his eyes, genuine but controlled. The contrast was the key. Stillness and explosion, danger and warmth, all in seconds. He also worked on something deeper: his accent. Bruce had arrived in the United States with a strong Cantonese accent. In 6 years, he had improved it, but it was still noticeable. Some casting directors had told him he sounded too foreign. Bruce knew he couldn't completely eliminate his accent in 3 weeks, but he could turn it into an asset. He practiced speaking with a specific cadence, clear, precise words, with intentional pauses that gave weight to every phrase. His accent no longer sounded like a limitation. It sounded like authority, like someone who had traveled the world, someone interesting. February 20th, 1965. The day arrived. Bruce dressed carefully. Not a suit. That would be trying to fit into what Hollywood expected. Instead, a simple black shirt, black pants, traditional Chinese shoes. He looked exactly like what he was. A martial artist, but polished, modern, dangerous. Linda drove him to Paramount Studios. In the car, Bruce was completely silent. She knew it wasn't nervousness. It was absolute focus. Bruce was entering what he called the state of no mind, where everything except the present moment disappeared. In the waiting room there were 4 other Asian actors, all wearing Western suits, all looking nervous, quietly rehearsing lines. Bruce sat in silence, eyes closed, breathing slow and deep. An assistant came out. "Bruce Lee." Bruce stood up and walked into the audition room. It was smaller than he expected. A camera on a tripod. 3 chairs where William Dozier, his casting assistant, and a cameraman sat. The lights were bright, hot. Dozier didn't even stand up. He looked at Bruce with the bored expression of someone who had seen 1,000 auditions that week. "Bruce Lee, right?" Bruce nodded. "Yes, sir." "Okay, look, I don't have much time today. I'm going to give you 5 seconds in front of that camera. I don't need you to do kung fu. I don't need you to act a scene. I just need you to be there. If in 5 seconds I feel something, we keep talking. If not, thanks for coming." 5 seconds, not even a scene, just existing. Bruce nodded slowly. Understood. He stood in front of the camera. The cameraman adjusted the focus. "Okay, we're rolling in 3, 2, 1. What happened in the next 5 seconds became legend. Bruce didn't do a kung fu move. He didn't smile immediately. He didn't try to be charismatic in the obvious way. Instead, he did something completely unexpected. For exactly 2.3 seconds, Bruce Lee simply looked into the camera with an intensity that made it feel like he was staring straight into your soul. No blinking, no movement, just that gaze. In the editing room years later, technicians would say they'd never seen anyone own the camera like that. Then, at second 2.4, Bruce smiled. Not a full smile, just a slight lift at the corner of his mouth. It was the smile of someone who knows a secret, someone dangerous yet fascinating. At second 3, Bruce slowly turned his head to the left, as if noticing something off camera, keeping that faint smile. The movement was fluid, like a predator. At second 4, he looked back directly into the camera, and the smile widened slightly, reaching his eyes. No longer dangerous, accessible, human, charismatic. And at second 5, Bruce did something no one expected. He winked, not playfully or foolishly. It was a wink that said, "I know exactly what I'm doing. Do you?" The cameraman didn't even say cut. He just stared at the monitor, mouth slightly open. Dozier had leaned forward in his chair without realizing it. His assistant was frozen. The room was completely silent. Dozier cleared his throat. "Okay, that was interesting. Now talk to me. Who are you? What do you do?" And here is where Bruce delivered the final blow. He spoke with the cadence he had practiced, with his accent turned into an asset. "I'm Bruce Lee. I teach the Chinese art of Kung Fu, but it's not just fighting. It's philosophy. It's water. Water can flow, or it can destroy. I am water." Dozier blinked. "You're water?" Bruce smiled. "Water takes the shape of any container. It adapts, but it can also break stones. I adapt to any role, any scene, but I can also break expectations." Dozier leaned back in his chair. He looked at his assistant, then at Bruce. "Do you know what you just did?" Bruce remained silent, waiting. "You just proved to me in 5 seconds what other actors can't prove in 5 years." The audition continued for another 20 minutes. Dozier asked him to do some kung fu moves. He asked him to read some lines. Everything Bruce did was precise, controlled, magnetic. At the end, Dozier said, "I can't promise you anything today, but I'll call you." Bruce nodded, shook his hand, and left the room. In the car, Linda asked, "How did it go?" Bruce smiled. "I changed something in that room. I know I did." 3 days later, the phone rang. It was Dozier. "The role is yours, but I have to tell you something. After your audition, I watched the video again. I've probably watched it 50 times, and every time I watch it, I find something new. That's what real stars have. Layers. You can't fully figure them out." The #1 Son project never materialized, but Dozier gave Bruce something better. The role of Kato in The Green Hornet. And though the series only lasted 1 season, Bruce Lee became the real star. Kids in the United States weren't playing the Green Hornet. They were playing Kato. But the real revolution came afterward. Letters started arriving, thousands of them, from Asian American children who, for the first time in their lives, saw someone like them as the hero, as cool, as charismatic. From Black and Latino youth who saw that Hollywood could be challenged. From women who saw in Bruce a different kind of masculinity, not based on domination, but on control, discipline, authenticity. Bruce didn't just get a role. He broke down a door that had been closed for 50 years. And after him came Jackie Chan, Jet Li, Asian actors who could be protagonists, not stereotypes. But here's the truth most people don't understand. Bruce Lee didn't succeed because he was the best fighter. He succeeded because he understood something fundamental about power and presence. The most dangerous weapon isn't the fist. It's knowing exactly how to use every second you're given. It's turning limitations into strengths. It's understanding that charisma isn't something you're born with. It's something you build, practice, perfect. Bruce Lee spent 3 weeks preparing for 5 seconds. Most people wouldn't spend 5 minutes. And that's the difference between being forgotten and changing history. William Dozier kept that audition video of Bruce for years. After Bruce's death in 1973, Dozier gave an interview. They asked him about that day in 1965. Dozier smiled sadly. "That day, a producer told me Asians had no charisma. I showed him Bruce's video." He was silent for a full minute. Then he said, "Okay, that Asian has more charisma than any white actor we've hired this year." Bruce didn't just prove him wrong. He made the statement sound ridiculous. Bruce Lee's story teaches us something that goes beyond cinema. When the world tells you that you can't, when the doors are closed, when you're only given 5 seconds, you don't need hours. You just need to know exactly who you are and show that truth without apologies, without filters, with absolute precision. Bruce Lee died at 32 years old, but in those 5 seconds in front of a camera, he created a legacy that lives on 60 years later. Because those 5 seconds weren't luck. They were 8 years of rejection, 3 weeks of obsessive preparation, and a life dedicated to perfecting the art of being unforgettable. And every time you see an Asian actor starring in a Hollywood movie, every time you see martial arts portrayed with respect on screen, every time someone breaks a stereotype that seemed unbreakable, you're seeing the echo of those 5 seconds. Remember, in Hollywood, charisma wasn't a gift, it was a conquest, and Bruce Lee conquered it in exactly 5 seconds.